The Grand Belmont Ballroom glowed gold under crystal chandeliers. 300 guests in silk and diamonds raised champagne glasses, while a string quartet played softly in the corner. Marcus Hale stood at the center like a king, his cobalt blue suit custom-tailored to perfection. Elena Reyes moved along the edge of the room with a tray of empty glasses. She wore her cleaning uniform, a simple white polo and black slacks. Nobody looked at her. She was part of the scenery, invisible as the marble columns. Then it happened. She turned near the dessert table and her elbow caught the edge of a champagne tower. 3 glasses tipped. The crash echoed like a gunshot across polished floors. The music stopped. 300 heads turned. Elena froze, tray trembling in her hands. Marcus Hale's laugh cut through the silence, sharp, mocking, theatrical. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, spreading his arms wide, "this is what happens when the help forgets their place." More laughter rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted. Cameras pointed. Elena bent to collect the broken glass. Her hands moved steady despite the heat crawling up her neck. Marcus stepped closer. Italian leather shoes crunching shards. Some people are meant to be seen. Others, he gestured at her dismissively, should know better than to exist in our line of sight. The crowd erupted in nervous laughter. Someone recorded everything. Elena stood slowly. She met his eyes, cold blue, amused. For 3 seconds she held his gaze. Something flickered across her face. Not anger, not fear. Something calculating, dangerous. Then she lowered her head and walked toward the service exit. Marcus returned to his guests, already forgetting her. He shouldn't have. "Hey, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. And if you believe in karma, hit that like button and subscribe for more justice stories." Elena Maria Reyes had worked the night shift at Hale Industries for 3 years and 4 months. 52 years old, silver threading through dark hair she kept in a tight bun. Her hands were calloused from decades of work, but her eyes stayed sharp. She lived in a modest apartment in Queens with her 2 grandchildren, Sophia, 8, and Miguel, 6. Their mother, Elena's daughter Carmen, had passed 2 years earlier from an illness they couldn't afford to treat properly. The children called Elena Abuela, and believed she cleaned offices because she liked the quiet. They weren't wrong. Every night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Elena moved through 40 floors of Hale Industries headquarters. She emptied trash bins, vacuumed carpets, wiped down conference tables. She worked in silence, earbuds playing old boleros while executives' offices sat empty and exposed. Most cleaners didn't look at the papers left on desks. Elena couldn't help it. Before immigrating 15 years ago, she'd been an accountant in Colombia. She'd managed books for a textile company, caught discrepancies others missed, understood financial statements the way musicians understood sheet music. That skill never left, even after she lost everything crossing borders. So when she cleaned Marcus Hale's executive floor, she noticed things. Documents left carelessly open, spreadsheets with numbers that didn't balance, emails printed and forgotten, investment reports with phantom accounts. At first, she told herself it wasn't her business. She was just the cleaning woman, invisible, safe in her invisibility, but numbers don't lie. And Elena had a photographic memory. 6 months ago, she'd started taking pictures with her phone, just a few documents at first, then more. She told herself she'd probably never use them. She wasn't sure why she kept going, until tonight, when Marcus Hale reminded her exactly why people like her stayed invisible, because powerful men never see threats coming from below. Marcus turned to his CFO, Richard Sterling, a thin man in a charcoal suit. "Get her fired immediately," Richard nodded. "I'll handle it personally." The gala continued. Laughter, music, the clink of fresh champagne glasses. Elena had already disappeared through the service corridor, but the moment had been captured on a dozen phones. Someone would post it online by morning. Richard found Elena in the staff changing room 30 minutes later. She was buttoning her coat, a worn mustard-yellow raincoat she'd owned for years. "Ms. Reyes." His voice was cold, professional. "Your employment with Hale Industries is terminated, effective immediately." Elena's hands stilled on her buttons. "For an accident?" "For disrupting a private corporate event and embarrassing Mr. Hale in front of investors." He held out a tablet. "Sign the termination agreement. You'll receive 2 weeks' severance." Elena stared at the screen. 3 years of work, gone in a moment, because she'd made a billionaire uncomfortable. She thought about Sophia's asthma medication, Miguel's school supplies, the rent due in 9 days. Then she thought about the flash drive in her coat pocket, the one containing 6 months of photographed documents. Financial statements showing money flowing to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Investment reports with fabricated returns. Emails discussing account manipulation. Over $1 billion vanished into phantom accounts while investors believed their money was safe. Elena looked up at Richard. "And if I don't sign?" "Then you leave with nothing, and will ensure no cleaning company in New York hires you again." His smile was thin. "Mr. Hale has a long memory." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere a pipe dripped. Elena took the tablet. She signed. Richard left without another word. Elena stood alone in the changing room. Rain hammered against a small window near the ceiling. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and stared at it. A small black rectangle, containing enough evidence to destroy an empire. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. She walked into the rain with the flash drive clutched in her hand. Elena's apartment was dark when she arrived home at midnight. Sophia and Miguel slept in the bedroom they shared, their breathing soft and even. Mrs. Chen from next door had watched them, as she always did on gala nights. Elena sat at her small kitchen table without turning on lights. Rain streaked the window. The city glowed orange and grey beyond the glass. She placed the flash drive on the table. Her hands were shaking now. Delayed reaction, adrenaline crash, fear catching up. She'd been calm in the moment. Calm while signing her termination, calm walking through rain. Now her body remembered humiliation, the laughter, the cameras. His voice should know better than to exist in our line of sight. Elena closed her eyes. Her daughter's voice came back, clear as if Carmen sat beside her. "Mama, you taught me that doing nothing is choosing a side." "You taught me that." Carmen had said that during her final weeks. Eleanor had been trying to convince her to accept charity, to ask for help, to bend pride for survival. Carmen had refused. "We do the right thing, Mama. That's who we are." The right thing had let Carmen die with dignity, but die nonetheless. Elena opened her eyes. The flash drive sat there, small and black and loaded. She thought about the documents inside. The investors who'd trusted Marcus Hale with retirement savings. The pension funds drained through careful fraud. The families who'd lost everything while Marcus bought yachts and threw galas. Her hands stopped shaking. She picked up the flash drive and inserted it into her old laptop. The files opened, spreadsheets, emails, account statements, all organized by date. 6 months of patient documentation. Outside, lightning flashed. Thunder followed 3 seconds later. Elena began typing an email. She didn't know who to send it to yet. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Marcus Hale had made a mistake tonight. He'd reminded her she was invisible, and invisible people see everything. Elena hadn't always been a cleaning woman. 20 years ago in Medellin, she'd worked for Industrias Vargas, a textile manufacturer with 300 employees. She'd been their senior accountant, the woman who caught errors before auditors arrived, who balanced books down to the last peso. She'd loved that work. Numbers were honest. They revealed truth when everything else lied. Her husband Miguel, the grandfather her grandson was named for, had worked in the same factory as a floor manager. They'd saved money carefully, dreamed of their daughter Carmen becoming a doctor. Life was modest but stable. Then the factory owner's son took over operations. Young, ambitious, careless with other people's money. Elena noticed discrepancies, inventory that didn't match orders, payments to vendors that didn't exist. She'd reported it to the owner. 2 weeks later, her husband died in a factory accident. A machine malfunction, they called it. Elena knew better. She'd seen the maintenance records. Nothing wrong with that machine. The message was clear: stay silent or lose everything. She'd fled to America with Carmen, then 16. They'd crossed borders with nothing. Started over in a country where Elena's degrees meant nothing and her English was broken. But she'd taught Carmen one lesson above all others. Numbers don't lie, Mija. When people try to hide the truth, numbers reveal it. Always, Carmen had believed that. She'd worked 2 jobs putting herself through nursing school, believing hard work and honesty mattered. She'd believed right up until the medical bills came and insurance denied coverage through paperwork manipulation. Elena had watched her daughter die because someone, somewhere, had manipulated numbers for profit. Now, sitting in her dark kitchen, she understood why she'd been photographing documents for 6 months. She'd been preparing for this moment without knowing it. Her daughter's voice, "Do the right thing, Mama." Elena pulled out her phone and began searching. How to report corporate fraud. Elena spread printed documents across her kitchen floor. She'd spent 3 hours organizing everything, creating a timeline that even a financial novice could follow. The pattern was elegant, terrifying, brilliant in its cruelty. Marcus. Hale had built his empire on investment funds, promising 12% annual returns to pension funds, retirement accounts and small investors. Hale Industries claimed to invest in technology startups and emerging markets. But the money never went where promised. Instead, it flowed through a network of shell companies: Cayman Ventures Ltd, Sterling Holdings BV, Pacific Trust Associates. Each company existed only on paper, registered to offshore addresses, managed by lawyers who asked no questions. The money would circle through these shells, generating fake transaction reports. Then portions would flow back to Hale Industries as investment returns, but only enough to keep investors confident. The rest disappeared into personal accounts Marcus controlled. Early investors received their promised returns, paid not from profits, but from new investors' money. A classic Ponzi scheme dressed in tech industry clothing. Elena found the numbers. $1.2 billion collected over 8 years. Only $400 million actually invested. The rest, gone. Pension funds in Ohio, teacher retirement accounts in California, small business owners who'd trusted their savings to a billionaire's proven track record. All of it smoke and mirrors. All of it carefully hidden behind legitimate-looking paperwork and audits from firms Marcus paid to stay blind. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd cleaned his office for 3 years, walked past him in hallways, emptied his trash. She'd been invisible while he destroyed thousands of lives with a smile and a handshake. Her phone screen glowed in the darkness. SEC whistleblower hotline, but another search result caught her eye. Financial journalist Sarah Chen exposes corporate fraud. Elena clicked through. Sarah Chen had broken 3 major fraud cases in the past 5 years. She was known for protecting sources and following evidence wherever it led. Elena found Chen's contact email at the bottom of an article. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. Once she sent this, there was no going back. Marcus Hale would come after her with everything. Lawyers, threats, maybe worse. She looked at the bedroom door where her grandchildren slept. Then she looked at the documents spread across her floor. $1.2 billion. Thousands of families. Elena began typing. The coffee shop was in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's financial district. Elena arrived early, chose a corner table near the back exit. Old habits from a life she'd tried to leave behind. Sarah Chen arrived exactly on time, 38, sharp-eyed, carrying a leather messenger bag. She wore a simple charcoal blazer and had the exhausted look of someone who'd spent years chasing truth. "Ms. Reyes?" She slid into the booth. Elena nodded. She pushed a manila envelope across the table. "Everything's in there. Documents, account statements, email screenshots. 6 months of evidence. Sarah opened the envelope carefully. Her eyes moved across the first page. Then the second. Her expression shifted. Disbelief to focus to something like hunger. Do you understand what this is? Sarah looked up. Fraud. Over $1 billion. This is the biggest financial scandal since Madoff. Sarah's hands trembled slightly. If this is real, and it looks real, Marcus Hale goes to prison. His entire company collapses. For the first time in days, Elena felt hope flicker. So you'll investigate? I'll do better than investigate. I'll destroy him. Sarah pulled out her phone. But I need to verify sources, cross-reference accounts, confirm the shell companies exist. Give me 1 week, Elena nodded. And my name? Protected. Always. Sarah's voice was firm. I've gone to jail before protecting sources. I'll do it again. They shook hands. Elena left through the back exit, her heart lighter than it had been since the gala. She didn't see the man in the parked sedan across the street, camera trained on the coffee shop entrance. She didn't know Marcus Hale's head of security was already reviewing footage of her entering the building. For 3 days, Elena believed she'd won. Sarah texted updates, verifying accounts. This is solid. Story runs Friday. Then on the 4th day, silence, Elena texted. No response. She called. Voicemail. That evening, a lawyer knocked on her door. The lawyer was young, expensive-looking, with a silver briefcase and a smile like broken glass. Ms. Elena Reyes, yes? He handed her a document. You're being sued for theft of proprietary information, corporate espionage, and defamation. Mr. Hale is seeking $10 million in damages. Elena's hands went numb. The paper felt impossibly heavy. You photographed confidential documents without authorization. You shared them with a journalist. Those are federal crimes, Ms. Reyes. His voice was pleasant, almost friendly. Mr. Hale is prepared to drop all charges if you return all copies of the documents and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Refuse, and you'll spend the next decade in court. Maybe prison. He left the document and walked away. Elena closed the door. Her legs shook. She sat on the floor right there in the entryway. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice grandchildren. Sophia's school gets out at 3:15, right? Elena's blood turned to ice. Another text. Be smart. Some fights aren't worth fighting. She called Sarah Chen, still no answer. She called the newspaper. Ms. Chen is no longer working on that story. I can't discuss internal editorial decisions. Elena understood. Marcus had gotten to them. Threats, lawyers, money, whatever it took. She was alone. That night she couldn't sleep. She stood at her window watching the street below. A dark sedan sat parked across from her building. It hadn't been there before. Sophia coughed in the bedroom, her asthma acting up. Elena went to the kitchen. She took the flash drive from where she'd hidden it inside a flour canister. She held it up to the light, $1 billion of evidence in her hand, and no one willing to help her use it. Outside, the sedan's headlights flicked on, then off. A message. Elena closed her eyes. Carmen's voice came back one more time. Do the right thing, Mama. But what was the right thing when the right thing could destroy everything she had left? The flash drive felt heavier than it should. Somewhere in Manhattan, Marcus Hale slept soundly in a penthouse, believing he'd won. Believing the cleaning woman had learned her place. He was wrong, but Elena didn't know that yet. Elena lost everything in 2 weeks. No cleaning company would hire her. She called 14 agencies. Each one said the same thing. Your background check came back with concerns. Marcus's influence reached everywhere, invisible but absolute. Her savings drained fast. Rent came due. She paid it and watched her account drop to double digits. Sophia needed new asthma medication. The pharmacy wanted $87. Elena counted coins on the counter, while the pharmacist waited with patient eyes. Miguel asked why Abuela was home during the day now. Did you get a new job? His voice was hopeful, innocent. Elena smiled and lied. Just a little vacation, mi amor. The dark sedan disappeared after the first week, but she knew they were still watching. Different cars, different men. The message was clear. We can reach you any time. She sat in her apartment during the day while her grandchildren were at school. The silence was suffocating. She'd spent 3 years working nights, embracing solitude. Now it felt like burial. The flash drive stayed hidden in the flour canister. Sometimes she took it out and stared at it, this small piece of plastic that held the power to destroy a billionaire, or destroy her. One afternoon, she found an old photograph in a drawer. Carmen at her nursing school graduation, cap and gown, enormous smile. On the back, her daughter had written, "Para mi mamá, quien me enseñó que la verdad siempre gana." For my mama, who taught me truth always wins. Elena sat on the floor holding that photograph. She thought about her husband Miguel, crushed by a machine because he'd been married to an accountant who wouldn't stay quiet. She thought about Carmen, killed by paperwork and greed disguised as policy. She thought about Marcus Hale sleeping peacefully while families lost everything. The silence pressed. Down heavy, dark, almost winning. Then Sophia came home. From school with a drawing, a crayon picture, of Elena with a superhero cape. "Because you're the bravest, abuela." Elena taped it to the refrigerator. That night she took out the flash drive one more time. She turned it over in her hands, feeling its weight, its possibility. Then she remembered something. A news report from months ago. A whistleblower who'd exposed pharmaceutical fraud. The reporter had mentioned a government hotline, protection programs, financial rewards for information leading to convictions. Elena opened her laptop and searched SEC whistleblower program. The website loaded. Clear instructions. Protections guaranteed by federal law. Potential rewards of 10 to 30% of recovered funds. Her finger hovered over the contact number. This time she didn't hesitate. David Park answered on the third ring. Securities and Exchange Commission, Whistleblower Office. "My name is Elena Reyes. I have evidence of fraud. Over $1 billion, a pause. Can you hold, please?" 2 minutes later, a different voice, older, careful. "Ms. Reyes, this is Senior Agent David Park. Tell me everything." Elena talked for 3 hours. She explained the shell companies, the phantom accounts, the investment reports with fabricated returns. She described every document, every number, every discrepancy she'd found over 6 months of quiet observation. David Park listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "I've been investigating Marcus Hale for 4 years. We knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it. Ms. Reyes, you just handed me the missing pieces. What happens now? Now you send me everything. Then we verify, build the case, and prepare for federal prosecution." His voice was steady, confident. "And Ms. Reyes, we protect our witnesses. No one touches you or your family." That's a promise. 2 days later, 3 SEC agents arrived at her apartment. They copied the flash drive, took her statement, explained the whistleblower protection program. One agent, a woman named Lisa Rodriguez, stayed behind after the others left. "I read your file," Lisa said quietly. "What Marcus did at that gala, the lawsuit threats, the intimidation." She met Elena's eyes. "Men like him think they're untouchable. Thank you for proving them wrong." The investigation moved fast. Federal agents raided Hale Industries at dawn on a Thursday. They seized computers, froze accounts, interviewed employees. Marcus's lawyers swarmed, but the evidence was ironclad. David Park called Elena weekly with updates. "We've confirmed 12 shell companies. The fraud goes back 9 years. We're estimating 1.4 billion now, not 1.2. Will he go to trial? Absolutely. And you'll testify." A pause. "Are you ready for that?" Elena thought about the gala, the laughter, the cameras, his voice dismissing her as invisible. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." 6 weeks after her first call to the SEC, Marcus Hale received a federal subpoena. His lawyers tried to block it. The judge denied every motion. A trial date was set, 60 days. Elena received a call from Sarah Chen, the journalist who'd gone silent. "I'm sorry," Sarah's voice was raw. "They threatened my editor, threatened to sue the paper into bankruptcy. I had to drop it. It's okay," Elena said. "The SEC has it now. I want to cover the trial. I want to tell your story the right way this time," Elena agreed. The sedan never returned to her street. The lawsuit threat disappeared. Marcus's lawyers were too busy preparing his defense to bother with intimidation. Elena got a job at a hospital, cleaning again, but honest work with people who didn't know her story, and every night she prepared for the trial. She reviewed documents with David Park, practiced testimony, learned how to speak clearly under pressure. 60 days passed like water. The morning of the trial, Elena dressed in a simple ivory dress Sophia had helped her pick out. She braided her hair the way Carmen used to wear it. In the mirror, she saw not a cleaning woman, but a witness, someone who'd chosen truth over safety. She was ready. The federal courthouse rose like a monument to justice, all marble columns and granite steps. News vans lined the street. Reporters clustered near the entrance, cameras ready. Elena walked past them with David Park and Lisa Rodriguez flanking her. Questions flew like birds. "Ms. Reyes, how did you discover the fraud? Are you afraid of retaliation? What do you want people to know?" She said nothing. Not yet. Inside, the courtroom was oak and brass, flags at attention, the seal of the United States mounted above the judge's bench. Spectators filled every seat. Sarah Chen sat in the press gallery, notebook open. Marcus Hale entered, surrounded by 5 lawyers in matching navy suits. He wore cobalt blue again, his signature color, his armor. He looked confident, almost bored. Then he saw Elena sitting at the prosecution table. Their eyes met across 30 feet of polished floor. Recognition flickered, then dismissal. He turned to his lawyers and whispered something. One of them smiled. The judge entered. "All rise." The trial began with opening statements. The prosecution outlined the fraud. Shell companies, phantom investments, $1.4 billion stolen from over 2,000 investors. They promised evidence, documents, testimony from an insider who'd seen everything. Marcus's lead attorney stood. Distinguished, silver-haired, expensive. "The prosecution will try to convince you that my client is a criminal. But what they have is paperwork taken illegally by a disgruntled employee. An employee fired for incompetence and seeking revenge through false accusations." He gestured toward Elena, without looking at her. "This woman worked as a cleaning lady. She has no financial training, no expertise, no credibility. This case is built on theft and lies." Elena's hands clenched under the table. David Park touched her arm gently. "Wait," he whispered. The prosecution called its first witness, an SEC forensic accountant who'd analyzed the shell companies. He explained how money flowed out but never returned, how investment reports were fabricated, how Marcus had personally authorized transactions to offshore accounts. Marcus's lawyer objected 17 times. The judge overruled 16, then the prosecutor stood. "The government calls Elena Maria Reyes." Elena walked to the witness stand. The room felt massive, oppressive. 200 eyes watching. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. She sat. The microphone was too close. She adjusted it with shaking hands. The prosecutor approached. "Miss Reyes, how long did you work at Hale Industries?" 3 years and 4 months. Her voice was steady. "And what was your position?" "Night shift cleaning supervisor." A ripple of whispers. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Dismissive. Can you tell the court what you observed during your employment?" Elena took a breath. Then she began. She described the documents left on desks, the emails printed and forgotten, the spreadsheets with numbers that didn't balance. She explained her background as an accountant, her ability to recognize financial discrepancies. "I started taking photographs 6 months before I was terminated, not because I planned to use them, because numbers don't lie, and these numbers were screaming." The prosecutor displayed documents on courtroom screens, emails between Marcus and his CFO discussing creative accounting, spreadsheets showing money transferred to shell companies, bank statements from Cayman accounts in Marcus's name. "Did you take these photographs, Ms. Reyes?" "Yes." "And why did you decide to come forward?" Elena looked directly at Marcus. He met her eyes this time, his expression cold. "Because at a corporate gala Mr. Hale told me I should know better than to exist in his line of sight. He reminded me I was invisible." She paused. "But invisible people see everything, and they remember." The courtroom was silent. The prosecutor continued. "Can you explain Exhibit 47, the email dated March 15th? Elena did. She explained every transaction, every shell company, every fake investment report. She spoke for 2 hours, her voice never wavering, her memory flawless. Marcus's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He tried to rattle her, questioned her credentials, her motives, her methods. "You stole these documents, didn't you?" "I photographed evidence of a crime." "You're not a forensic accountant. How can you claim to understand?" "I was a senior accountant for 12 years before immigrating." "Numbers are numbers, sir. They don't change language." He tried again. "You were fired for incompetence. I was fired for being humiliated by your client at a public event. 2 hours later, I still had evidence of his crimes." The lawyer's frustration showed. He asked the same questions different ways. Elena answered each one calmly, precisely. Finally, the judge intervened. "Counsel, move on or sit down." The lawyer sat. The prosecutor stood for redirect. "Ms. Reyes, one final question. Why didn't you—" "Stay silent. Why risk everything?" Eleanor looked at the gallery, at Sarah Chen taking notes, at the investors who'd lost their savings sitting in the front rows, at her grandchildren watching from the back with Mrs. Chen. "Because my daughter taught me that doing nothing is choosing a side, and I chose truth." The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge called for order. Elena stepped down. As she passed the defense table, Marcus hissed under his breath, "You'll regret this." She stopped, turned, looked him in the eye. "No," she said clearly. "You will." The jury deliberated for 7 hours. Elena waited in a private room with David Park and Lisa Rodriguez. She couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. She paced while Sophia and Miguel colored at a table, unaware of the weight of the moment. At 4:47 p.m., the call came. Juries reached a verdict. The courtroom filled again. Marcus Hale sat rigid, his lawyers whispering urgently. Eleanor took her seat behind the prosecution table. The jury filed in. Eleanor searched their faces for clues. Found nothing. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of securities fraud, how do you find guilty? On the charge of wire fraud, guilty. 12 counts, 12 guilty verdicts." The courtroom exploded. Marcus's face went white. His lawyers immediately filed for appeal. The judge set sentencing for 30 days and denied bail. Federal marshals approached Marcus. He stood slowly, dignity crumbling. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back once at Elena. She met his eyes, said nothing. She didn't need to. Outside, reporters swarmed. Eleanor stood on the courthouse steps with David Park. Camera flashes popped like stars. Sarah Chen pushed forward with a microphone. "Ms. Reyes, what do you want to say to other whistleblowers who are afraid to come forward?" Eleanor thought about her husband, her daughter, every person who'd stayed silent because speaking cost too much. The powerful stay powerful because we stay quiet. But silence protects them, not us. She looked directly into the camera. "If you see something wrong, speak." "Yes, it's terrifying. Yes, you might lose things, but you'll gain something more important. You'll know you chose truth." The SEC announced that Elena would receive 18% of recovered funds, approximately $250 million, the largest whistleblower award in SEC history. Elena donated most of it to victims' restitution funds and organizations supporting immigrant workers. She kept enough for Sophia and Miguel's education, for security, for a small house with a garden. She went back to work at the hospital. Not because she needed to, but because cleaning gave her purpose, peace, time to think. 6 months later, Marcus Hale was sentenced to 27 years in federal prison. His empire collapsed. Hale Industries dissolved. Over $1 billion was returned to investors. Elena visited Carmen's grave with flowers. She told her daughter everything. "I did the right thing, Mika. It was hard, but I did it." The wind rustled through trees. Elena felt peace settle around her like light. She'd been invisible. Now she wasn't. But more importantly, she'd made sure the truth was visible too, and that changed everything. 3 years later, Elena spoke at a financial ethics conference. She stood before an auditorium filled with accountants, lawyers, and business students. She wore a simple lavender dress and spoke without notes. "People ask me if I regret coming forward. If I'd do it again knowing the cost." She paused. "The answer is yes, every time yes. Because here's what I learned. Power isn't about money or titles or corner offices. Power is about knowing what's right and having the courage to act. The people dismissed as invisible, the cleaners, the drivers, the ones who exist at the margins. We often see the truth most clearly, because no one hides from people they don't see." She looked across the audience. Young faces, hopeful faces. Some of you will face moments where speaking up costs everything, where staying silent seems safer. Remember this: silence protects the guilty, not the innocent. And sometimes the smallest voice can bring down the mightiest empire. Justice doesn't care who you are. It only cares what you do. Elena finished speaking. The auditorium rose in applause. That evening, she returned home to Sophia and Miguel, now teenagers preparing for college. They studied at the kitchen table where she'd once sat with a flash drive, deciding whether to risk everything. She made dinner while they laughed over homework. Through the window, the city glowed in evening light. Somewhere, in a federal prison, Marcus Hale sat in a cell remembering the cleaning woman he'd dismissed as invisible. And Elena lived free, knowing she'd chosen truth when it mattered most. The photograph of Carmen remained on the refrigerator, her daughter's words still visible on the back. Truth always wins. Not always quickly, not always easily, but eventually, inevitably, truth wins.